Okay, so in this session we will begin the second chapter. Well, we will begin and finish the second chapter, this first part, English vowels from spelling to sound. So I won't go over the references once more. You have them in the previous session, okay, if you want to hear the references discussed. So this chapter is entitled The Pronunciation of English Vowels. So the chapter 1 was an overview of the history of English spelling, which was intended to give you a bit of context as to the state of the English spelling today. And in the second chapter, we deal with the pronunciation of English vowels, so focusing on vowels. We won't be talking very much about consonants in this course because well, choices had to be made. And the pronunciation of vowels is by far the most problematic area of the correspondences between spelling and sound in English. So this chapter will have three set parts. First, we will deal with the opposition between context-free and context-dependent values. Okay? Then we will deal with the key factors that influence pronunciation. And finally, we will go in more detail into the pronunciation of stressed monographic vowels. So starting with the opposition between context-free and context-dependent values. There are basically two types of units, and here I'm talking about all types of graphemes, consonant graphemes and vowel graphemes at the same time. Some graphemes, remember that graphemes are the basic units of the spelling system as opposed to letters, which, so 26 letters in the English alphabet, but about 70 graphemes, remember. So if that's not very clear for you, I send you back to the end of the previous chapter. So within the set of English graphemes, we can make a difference between context-free graphemes and context-dependent graphemes. So context-free, or which are also called absolute units, are units whose value does not change depending on the context in which they're used. That is, the value of context-free or absolute units is the same whatever the context of use. Okay, so what are the context-free or absolute units of the English spelling system? Well, most consonants are actually context-free or absolute units. That is, if you think of consonants like D, F, the D graph double S, the tree graph T, C, H, all of these graphemes, okay, remember that a grapheme may have just one letter or several letters, okay? All of these graphemes have the same value, whatever their context of use. Okay, that is, D is always going to be pronounced as D, F always as F, double S always as S, T, C, H always as Ch. Okay. Among context-free or absolute units, you also have some digraphic vowels. When I say some people say most, others do not actually treat digraphic vowels as context-free units, but most digraphic vowels are actually context-free in that whatever the context of use, they will have the same basic value. That's a case for double E, for instance, which is found in tree, okay, and which is always pronounced as the long vowel E. Okay, the same is true for the AI or AY D graph. Okay, given that I and Y are more or less used, they're used in different contexts, but they're equivalent. Okay. This grapheme is almost always pronounced as A. That is, its regular value is A, and it only has one regular value. And it's found in pain, for instance. The AU or AW, again, just like I and Y sometimes alternate with the AI, AY grapheme, the U and the W alternate as well, okay? So in lawn, for instance, you have the AW grapheme, which is pronounced as O, and this is the only regular pronunciation of the AW grapheme, okay? Now, the reason why digraphic vowels are sometimes not treated as context-free units is that they always have a second pronunciation where their value is modified when they occur before R. But this modification of the pronunciation of the digraph is predictable, predictable and irregular in some way, because the way the pronunciation of the digraph is influenced by the consonant R follows phonetic and phonological rules, and is not random. You'll see that if you try to think about the way every grapheme and even every vowel, is influenced by the R consonant, it's always the result is always a tensing of the vowel, whether it be a lengthening of the vowel or a diphthongization of the vowel. So that is why, because it's not random, and it's predictable by rule, we do not need to consider the value of the digraph as pronounced before R as a really separate value, as a completely separate value. An illustration, however, of what happens to these graphemes when they're used before R can be seen in the pronunciation of the digraph E in pia, where it's pronounced as a diphthong ia, as opposed to the long vowel E. And the same happened to AI in pair, where the A diphthong becomes a central diphthong air. So from A you go to air, because of the influence of the R consonant. Well, that's about it. So most consonants are context-free. Some digraphic vowels may be considered context-free, but as for the rest of English graphemes, they are all context-dependent or relative units. Context-dependent or relative units are graphemes whose value depends on the context of occurrence. That is, which means that a number of factors need to be taken into account so as to determine the value of the grapheme in a given word. So that's the case for a few consonants. So I said that most consonants were actually context-free, but some of them are context-dependent. So that's the case for the S consonant, which, depending on the context, is going to be realized as in sun, for instance, as z in rise, as sh in impulsion, for instance, and as j in vision. So you can see that the consonant S can have as many as 4 different values depending on the context of occurrence. G is also a quite problematic consonant. It has at least 2 different and very frequent values, which are g and j. So if you think of great, G is realized as G, and in gin, for instance, it's realized as J. Again, there are factors that are going to influence the pronunciation of these consonants, contextual factors, that is. Then there are a number of digraphic vowels that are also context dependent. The most probably the one that is often taken as an example of as illustrating the very chaotic nature of the English spelling system is the OU grapheme that you have in loud, in soup, in shoulder, in bought, and in trouble. So where you can see that the OU grapheme, digraph actually, has very different pronunciations. All these pronunciations, however, follow some very clear, regular rules, or sub-rules, that is, rules that are exceptions to major rules, but are still rules because they cover a quite a large number of terms, as opposed to mere exceptions. So in loud, for instance, you have the OU pronunciation, which is considered the basic value of the OU graphemes. That is, basically, underlyingly, the pronunciation of OU in English is OU, the diphthong OU. The OU grapheme, however, or digraph, has a secondary value, which is the OU pronunciation that you have in soup. This secondary value is actually corresponds to a foreign value of the grapheme. That is, the OU grapheme has this OU pronunciation in words that were borrowed from other languages, especially French. Okay. Then you have in shoulder what's called an OULC, that is capital C context, where the OU grapheme occurs before the consonant L, followed by another consonant. And in this type of context, you can predict that the OU grapheme is going to be pronounced as O, okay, as a diphthong O. Then in Bort, you have another very special type of context, which is the use of OU before the GHT. And in this type of context, OU is going to be realized as O, as in Bort. Okay? And you can think of other words such as sort, for instance, okay, and thought. Now, as for treble, treble is in treble the OU grapheme has a pronunciation which is the lax vowel, which is found whenever the OU grapheme occurs before the consonant B or P, actually, followed by L and mute E. Okay, so you have this in treble, in couple as well, and so on, right? So this gives you an idea as to how, as to the type of factors that may, contextual factors that may influence the pronunciation of a given grapheme and of a given digraph in context, okay? And so our is OU, which corresponds most of the time to our, but not always, is one of the most irregular, if you like, graphemes, vowel digraphs of English. Okay, not all digraphs are as irregular as I said before, and some of them may even be considered as context-free units. Finally, you have among the context-dependent or relative units, all monographic vowels, which is why these are what we are going to focus on. So I, and I might have added I or Y, okay, Y being again sometimes used as an alternative to I in certain contexts. So I, E, A, O, and U are all context-dependent units. They differ from digraphic vowels in that they always have two values, a checked value on the one hand and a free value on the other hand. Okay, so all monographic vowels have a checked value and a free value, whereas digraphic vowels actually have usually have one basic value and sometimes a secondary value and so on, but their basic value is always free. Okay, so a digraph is normally always free, okay, but then sometimes there are sub-rules and so on that explain variation in context. Monographic vowels, on the other hand, always have at least two values, okay, so they have two basic values, a checked value and a free value, which have been called as such because of the origin of these values, actually. I mean, because of the original context in which these values appeared. A checked a checked context, if you like, for a vowel was a context where the vowel was kept in check. Okay, that is, where the vowel was followed by a consonant, and which means that the vowel occurred in a closed syllable. Okay, and a closed syllable was sometimes also called a checked syllable. Free context is a context where the vowel is not kept in check, okay, meaning that there's no consonant following the vowel, might be in the word, might be in the syllable, okay. So originally, the free value of a vowel was found in an open syllable, okay. So these terms, checked and free, were used originally to describe the types of contexts in which these values occurred. They actually correspond to short, to the opposition between short and long, or the opposition between lax and tense. So a checked value is always corresponds to a short or lax vowel, okay? While a free value corresponds to a long or tense vowel, okay? And this is what we're going to study in more detail. Before moving on to the second part of this second chapter, that is, before having a look at the key factors that tend to influence the pronunciation of vowels in English, I just want to say that whether the unit, the grapheme, is considered to be context dependent or context free, it doesn't change the fact that there always are exceptions, okay, to the basic pronunciations that you can think of, put forward for a given vowel. Saying that a unit or a grapheme is context free means that it always has just one regular value, okay? We're talking about regular values. A unit that is context dependent will have several regular values, okay? But both types of units may have exceptions, okay, may have exceptional pronunciations, okay, idiosyncratic pronunciations, if you like, right? And these have to be learned, and that's all, right? So how do we know for a context-dependent unit whether, and especially for monographic vowels, whether the pronunciation of a vowel is going to be checked or free? Well, this can be predicted by having a look at a set of different factors, okay, which are regularly going to influence the pronunciation of a vowel. So moving on to subpart number 2. First, before you listen to the rest of the course, I would like you to have a try at the exercise that is on Cursus below the video, which is entitled Graphophonemics Exercise. In this exercise, I give you a list of words for the 5 monographic vowels of English, that is I, A, E, O, and U, okay? And I ask you to account for the pronunciation of the highlighted vowels in the words. The idea is for you to try and see how, well, if there are things that stand out, okay, as to, if there are regularities that you can discover for yourselves, okay, before I tell you what they are. Once you've had a look at the exercise, once you've tried to answer the different questions that I put so as to guide you in this reflection on the values of the vowels, you can go back to the course, listen to this part, okay, the key factors, go back to the exercise, okay, see if you can be more precise in your analysis, and then finish by having a look at the very specific rules that I will set out in subpart 3. Okay, so that was just a piece of advice. So if you've had a look at the words that appear in the exercise, you might have seen that all the words that in all the words that I gave you to analyze, the vowel was the highlighted vowel was always stressed. Why? Because stress is a key factor in predicting the value of a vowel in context. That is, stressed vowels are always more predictable than unstressed vowels. That is, stressed vowels may predict the value of a stressed vowel may be predicted by rules. Okay, so you can use rules to predict the value of a stressed vowel. Unstressed vowels, on the other hand, are often reduced. Okay, so that's a regular type of behavior for unstressed vowels, but not always. Okay, if you think of a word like zero, for instance, so in zero, the first syllable is stressed, so that is a syllable which has the E vowel. The second is not. Okay, so the syllable that has the O vowel is not stressed. But as you can hear when I pronounce the word zero, the O vowel is not reduced, even though it's not stressed. So you need to be careful as to not overgeneralize, okay? That is, unstressed vowels tend to be reduced, but they're not always reduced, and there are tendencies that we can put forward, okay? But there are no clear rules as to which vowel is going to be reduced and so on. If you want to know more about what happens to unstressed vowels, I advise you to have a look at Deschamps, that are put in bibliography, so English phonetics and graphophonemics, or English phonology and graphophonemics. And there you'll find answers. You'll see that what happens to an unstressed vowel often depends on the position of the unstressed vowel with regard to the position of primary stress in the word, okay, more or less. Here I would just like to point out that when a vowel is unstressed and when it's reduced, which is often the case, but again, not always, reduction may take 3 different forms, okay? And here I'm taking a little time to talk about reduction and what it might give, the value it might give to a vowel, because that's all I'm going to say about it. Afterwards, as you've seen in my first slide where I presented the chapter, we'll talk about the pronunciation of stressed monographic vowels, because again, only these are really predictable by rules, okay? So, still important to know that unstressed vowels, when they are reduced, may reduce to schwa, okay, which is probably the most frequent case, and this may happen to all vowels, okay, in English. That is, if you think of the vowel A in about, you see it's reduced to schwa. Same for the vowel O in information, okay? An unstressed vowel may also reduce to E, that is lax E, or non-phonemic E. Okay, so you have lax E in vinegar, and you have the non-phonemic E in happy. So the only vowels that may be reduced to E are the vowel I, okay, and the vowel E. Okay, when I say the vowel I and the vowel E, I mean the graphic vowels. So you have E in vinegar, and you have the I, which is realized as a Y, if you like, in happy. The non-phonemic E is a non-phonemic because it neither corresponds to the short E nor to the long E. It's a bit in between, okay? This E vowel is found in specific places, most of the time at the end of words, in affixes, such as the one that you find in happy, that is, in words ending in Y, okay, or in li, you often have this E, non-phonemic E vowel. You also find it before another vowel, okay, in prefixes, for instance. Okay, so in a word like react, okay, where you have primary stress on the act, the A vowel. The A is preceded by another vowel, which is a non-phonemic E, okay? A third possibility, and that's all these 3 cases cover all the possible cases of reduction for unstressed vowel. Another possibility then is that the vowel might be reduced to U, okay? And that's the case obviously only for the U vowel, okay? So again, you have a difference between the short lax U, okay, which is the first vowel that you have on the screen, which is found in stimulus, okay? And the non-phonemic U again, which occurs in the same type of context as E, which you can see in tuition. Okay, in tuition, here you have a context where the U vowel occurs right before another vowel, which is the stressed vowel in the word. Okay. Now, stressed vowels are more predictable. Okay, and the reason why I put forward this criterion here, okay, this criterion as being a key factor in the prediction of the value of a vowel in a word, is that basically the first thing that you need to do when you want to know, or when you want either to know or to justify the value of a vowel in a given context, is to have a look at whether the vowel is stressed or not. Okay, if it's stressed, then you will be able to apply the series of rules that we're going to see later on. If it's not, Well, you can make an educated guess as to the fact that it might be unstressed, but this might not be the case still, okay? Now, stress is an important, very important factor in the value that a vowel is going to have in a word. But there are other factors as well, such as the number of consonants that occur after the vowel, okay? And this should not come as a surprise if you remember what we've seen when we discussed the history of English spelling. So depending on the number of consonants after the vowel, okay, that you're considering, and especially the stressed vowel, you will either have a checked value or a free value. Not going into too much detail here, that will be the object of my third subpart, okay? So once you've considered whether the vowel is stressed or not, you might want to consider how many consonants there are after the vowel. And this might be a clue as well as to what the value of the vowel is going to be. Another important factor as well is the number of syllables that you have after the stressed vowel. So the number of consonants after the vowel is important, but the number of syllables is important as well, okay? In longer words, you will usually have a checked value rather than a free value, okay? So again, this is something that you might want to have a look at. And finally, the origin of the word might give you interesting insight as well into the type of value of free value that you're going to have. If you remember the word, one of the words that I give you in the exercise in the section on the vowel I, you will probably have seen that most of the time the I vowel is actually, when it's free, that is when it's long, is realized as I. Okay, that was a case in words like, life, despite, swipe, and so on. But you probably saw a word that stood out, which was machine. Okay, in machine, you had a long vowel, okay, E, but which did not correspond to the long vowel that you usually have for the I vowel. And the reason for that is that the machine actually comes from French. It was borrowed from French in the 16th century, and it kept a pronunciation that is closer to the original than the pronunciation of I usually is. Okay, so the origin of the word might help you make a difference between the basic value of the vowel and the foreign value. Okay, might explain why in some cases you have a foreign value for the vowel rather than the basic free value of the vowel. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say as far as the key factors influencing pronunciation in English are concerned. So again, the first thing you need to do when you want to decide what the pronunciation of a vowel is having a look at whether the vowel is stressed or not. Then, if the vowel is stressed, you will check whether the number of consonants that follow the vowel. Then you will check the number of syllables that follow the vowel. And finally, you might want to think about the origin of the word. Okay? Now, let's get more specific, having a look at stressed monographic vowels. And this we will do in 3 parts. First, I will present the basic values of all the stressed monographic vowels of English. Okay? Then we will see in what contexts each of these values occur. Okay? And finally, we will have a look at important subrules that are that allow to that help explain the values, special values of certain vowels in context. Okay, so starting with the basic values of the monographic vowels of English. So here, as I made clear on the PowerPoint, I will be talking about the basic values of I, E, O, U, and A, I think I forgot one, in Southern British English, okay? That is, as opposed to General American or other varieties of English. That is, what I'm going to say now is valid only for British English. In American English, you have some variation along the lines of what I'm going to present here, okay, and in other varieties as well, obviously. But again, a choice had to be made. So, again, the monographic vowels of English are I, E, A, O, and U, okay? Again, I is sometimes realized, if you like, as Y, okay, but which is much less frequent than I, okay, which is why I didn't write it on the screen. So again, as I've said before, all monographic vowels of English have two basic values. Each vowel has a checked value on the one hand and a free value on the other hand. Let's start with the checked value of these vowels. I is realized as a checked vowel in bit. As far as E is concerned, you have E in bet. For A, you have A in bat. O in bot. And for U, you have in but. Okay? Not much surprise here, I guess, except maybe for the last vowel. So here what you should note is that the basic value for the U vowel, that is the basic checked value for this vowel, is and not U, which is something that you might have thought to begin with. That is not U as in put, for instance. Okay? The basic checked value for U is Why? Because, well, so in some books, and that's why I'm talking about it now, if you have a look at some of the reference works that I put in the reference lists, you'll see that some works consider that the U vowel has actually two basic checked values. The value, which is the most frequent one, and the U value. Actually, the reason I chose to only put forward the value is that it's much more frequent than the U value. And although the value derives from the U value, if you like, historically speaking, the U value may be accounted for by a simple subrule, and it only actually works in about 20 words of the English language, so not many words at all, okay? That's why what you need to remember is that normally when you have the vowel U and it's supposed to be realized as checked, except in a very limited set of words, the value is going to be okay? Now, as for digraphic vowels, which, as we've seen before, sometimes have value modified by R, okay? Checked vowels also have an R modified value, okay? And these are exemplified in the following words. So in bird, you have the checked modified value, R modified value, of the vowel I, okay, which when R modified, that is when followed by the consonant R, okay, is realized as okay. In nerd, you also have an R modified checked value of the vowel E this time, okay, which is again realized as For A, the R modified checked value is O, as in barred, okay. For O, it's O, as in fought. And finally, for U, the value is as in curd. It's the same as for I and E. Okay, so you can see that out of 5 R modified values, you actually have 3 vowels. Okay, and you can see that the effect of the R value on the checked basic value is actually quite consistent and regular. All the normal basic checked values, E, E, A, O, and are lax vowels, okay, short vowels. The R modified checked values corresponding to these basic checked values are all tense vowels, okay? And the reason for that is that the R influences the pronunciation, the articulation, okay, from a phonetic articulatory point of view, of the preceding vowel, okay? And the reason why the sound is so predominant is also has to do with the articulatory properties of the R sound, okay, which although it can't be heard anymore in British English, that is, in British English, you actually don't pronounce the R consonant in all these words. You say bird, nerd, bard, fort, curt, as opposed to what happens in American English, where you say bird, nerd, bard, fort, and curt, okay? So you should be able to hear the difference. Originally, the R was pronounced in British English, okay, and that's why it's still pronounced today in American English, because the change happened after the immigration of people to America, okay. And this pronunciation is not what's called the rhotic pronunciation of English, that is where you pronounce the R occurring after vowel sounds. This pronunciation is not only found in general American, it's also found in Scottish English, for instance, okay, which has kept lots of articulatory traits of earlier English pronunciation, okay, that is, when I say English, I really mean English, okay, not Scottish English, okay. So what you have here in these words, the fact that the vowel is predominant, okay, as an R modified checked value of the vowels of English, is linked to the fact that the consonant R is pronounced in the middle, in the central part of the mouth, okay? And this characteristic, this articulatory property of the consonant was transferred to the vowel, okay, which was centralized. And if you have a look at the vowel chart that I put on Cursus, you'll see that the long vowel, okay, which is articulated in about the same position as the schwa vowel, is a central vowel, okay, just like the consonant R, if you like, okay. So there are, the reason why I'm explaining all this is that it might be useful for you to actually have a good representation of what happens when you articulate these vowels, and to show you that the idea is that the actual pronunciation and the modification of the checked value, the basic checked value, is not random, okay? It happens to be so because it was more efficient to speak that way, okay? And there was a natural influencing of the vowel by the consonant, okay? And this actually also happens in the free vowels, as we'll see in a minute. So as you can see, each vowel, has a checked value, okay, and a free value. But within the checked value, you have a normal basic checked value and an R modified checked value. So that's so here it means that you need to have a look at what follows the vowel. Okay, is there an R following the vowel or not? This is going to have an influence on the pronunciation of the vowel. Now, each of these vowels again has a free value as well, and these are quite easy to remember actually, because they all correspond to the pronunciation of the letter in isolation. So I is pronounced, the free value of I is I, the free value of E is E, the free value of A is A, the free value of O is O, and finally the free value of U is U. U, or sometimes U, okay, depending on the consonant that comes before the vowel, okay? Again, the free value may be modified by R if you have an R following the vowel in a free context, and we'll see what the free context is as opposed to a checked context, okay? These are the values that you have in this column, okay? So Ia is the free R modified value of the I vowel, okay? That's what you have in fire. For E, you have ia in Mia. For A, you have e as in bear. For O, you have o as in more. And for U, you have ua or o as in sure or sure. Okay? So again, you can see that U is a bit special actually, okay? It has two possible free or modified values, okay? And that's because originally the free value was supposed to be ua, okay? Ua, which is logical if you have a look at the rest of the vowels, where you can see that for almost all of them, you had a schwa is added to the original free value, okay? And but today it's being replaced more and more by the o vowel, okay, which is a long vowel, okay? So that sure may actually be pronounced sure or sure, okay, depending on your variety. So you can see that there's a parallel in what happens with checked vowels and free vowels. There's one last type of value that I need to see for free vowels, and that's a foreign value. I put it in a gray font because it's not as important as the rest of the values that you have on the screen, and you can see that not all vowels actually have a foreign free value. But still important to know that these actually exist, okay, so as to be able to make sense of some pronunciations that you find in some words. So for the I vowel, you have a free foreign value, which is E, okay, and which you have in machine, for instance, but which you also have in a word like bikini or martini, okay, which sound foreign, okay, and which are foreign in origin. The E vowel also has a free foreign value, which is A, which you find in peseta. Okay, peseta, which I didn't write down. It comes from the Spanish peseta. Okay. And for the A vowel, you have the A value, which can be the checked A modified value, but which can also be the free foreign value of the vowel, and you find it in a word like banana, for instance, banana, armada, etc. Okay, and you can see that these words are quite special. Again, they do not look English, okay, on the page, and they do not exactly sound English either in the rhythm of the words and so on. So these are the basic values of all the monographic vowels of English in the Southern British English, or the standard Southern British English variety, which corresponds to RP again, more or less, to a modern RP, received pronunciation. Now, this table in and of itself does not tell you how you should pronounce a vowel in a given context, okay? It tells you when you should have a checked vowel for the graphic vowel I, for instance. Well, the checked value is going to be E, okay? But it does not tell you, well, this is when you should use the checked value, okay? This is what we're going to see right now. The checked value occurs in two main contexts. First type of context is a context that is called VC hash sign, if you like. So let me tell you what that means exactly. What that means exactly is actually indicated on the side. So the V stands for vowel, okay? C stands for consonant, and the hash sign stands for end, okay? The end of something, okay? The reason why the V is underlined is that I wanted to show you that that is the vowel that I'm talking about here. That is the vowel whose pronunciation I'm interested in, okay? So here, the way you could rephrase this VC hash sign is by saying that a vowel, okay, V, that occurs before a final consonant or before a consonant which occurs at the end of a word, okay, that's what the hash sign stands for. The hash sign means end of the word. Sometimes it means end of a morpheme, okay, but it's probably more simpler if you remember end of the word, okay? So when a vowel occurs before a final consonant, it's going to be realized as checked. And that's what you have in bit, bet, but, and bot, okay, which correspond to the examples that I gave you for the checked value of the monographic vowels in the previous slide. Okay, so in all these words, the vowel, either I, E, A, or U, is followed by one consonant and only one consonant at the end of the word. And that is a context where you typically find a checked vowel, okay? Which again should not come as a surprise if you remember what we've seen about the history of English spelling. Another context where you find a checked value, which is even more important for you to remember, because it accounts for about 40% of English words. That is, 40% of English words fall under this rule that says that a vowel followed by CC, meaning two consonants, or rather at least two consonants, which is called a consonant cluster. Okay? So a vowel before a consonant cluster is realized as checked. Okay, and that's what you have in slipping, in judge, in pocket, in reaction, for instance. So in slipping, you have the I is followed by the consonant cluster P, P, double P, okay? In judge, the U is followed by the consonant cluster D, G, and you can see that you have an E after the G, but that does not change anything for the pronunciation of the vowel, because what's important is that it's followed by a consonant cluster, okay? In pocket, the vowel O is followed by C and K, which forms a consonant cluster as well. And in reaction, you have two consonants again, C and T, that form a consonant cluster, and that comes right after the A. So what is a consonant cluster exactly? Okay, so in this rule, again, I've said that CC stands for consonant cluster. So it may be only two consonants, but it may actually be more than two consonants. If you, again, have a look at one of the books that I recommended, you might find this as well, which means exactly the same thing. So it's a consonant at least two times. Okay, that's at least two consonants. So that you're completely clear about what a consonant cluster refers to, you need to know that a consonant cluster, again, is a sequence of two consonants, or something that weighs just as much as two consonants, okay? So let's be a bit more precise. Consonant clusters include geminated consonants. Okay, so geminated consonants. Geminated consonants are consonants that are repeated. That is, you have a geminated consonant when you have twice the same consonant. So in cliff, for instance, you have a geminate. Okay, this is a geminate. These are geminated consonants because you have two F. Okay, in writing, which do not sound as two first sounds. Okay, it's just one first sound, but two graphic consonants. So this is an important point. When we talk about a consonant cluster, that is about a sequence of two consonants, usually we talk about two graphic consonants, right? Not necessarily two phonemes, right? So consonant clusters include geminated consonants. They also include digraphic consonants, okay? So digraphic consonants are graphemes, okay, that are digraphs, and digraphs that are consonants, okay. So an example of a digraphic consonant would be sh, okay. SH is considered a digraphic consonant. It's a digraph, meaning it's a grapheme that is formed with two letters, two graphic symbols, okay. And which stands for one sound only. Because remember, to be a grapheme, you need to have as an equivalent just one phoneme, okay? And SH normally corresponds to sh, right? There are a few exceptions to be made about this second subtype of consonant clusters. Digraphic consonants do not include, so except, do not include lots of series of consonants where the second consonant is H, okay? So they do not include TH, nor PH, nor RH, or CH. So basically, the only sequence which has an H as a second consonant and is still considered a digraphic consonant, that is a consonant cluster, is SH, which I wrote before, okay? So when you have this, just this sequence of letters after a vowel, you cannot consider that it's followed by a consonant cluster, okay? This counts as just one consonant, which is somewhat logical if you think of the TH sound, for instance, because it only corresponds to one phoneme, okay, which is not a complex phoneme, if you like, okay. Right. Finally, well, almost finally, a consonant cluster may correspond to different consonants, and this is rather straightforward, okay? Different consonants. And that's what you have, for instance, in judge, okay, where you have D and G, okay, where you have two different consonants. In all these cases, you have two consonants in writing, okay, you have two consonant letters. There's there's a final grapheme that corresponds to a consonant cluster, which is made actually of just one letter, and that's X, okay? X counts as a consonant cluster. Why? Because X is normally pronounced as two phonemes, okay? As K plus S or as G plus Z, okay? X or X. And that's why it counts as a consonant cluster, okay? Right, so that's what you need to remember. Okay, so we've seen what there was to say about the checked value. Okay, so the two main contexts for the checked value of a vowel are these two contexts. When the vowel occurs before a final consonant, okay, or when the vowel occurs before a consonant cluster, that is at least two consonants, whatever the position of the vowel in the word. Okay, so this is an important point, and that's why the second rule is so powerful. Okay, it's powerful because it does not only cover words where the vowel occurs at the end of the word, it works for all words where the vowel is followed by a consonant cluster. Okay, so again, on how you're supposed to use such rules. If you see that a vowel occurs before a consonant cluster, such as is the case in pocket, for instance. See pocket, you have CK, okay? So consonant cluster. The preceding vowel is stressed, okay? You say pocket, not pocket, okay? So the O vowel is stressed. You know that the vowel O is going to have its checked value, and its basic checked value, not its checked value modified by R, because there's no R in the spelling, okay? So the O is going to have its checked value, and to know what the checked value of the O vowel is, you need to refer to the table that we've discussed just before, okay, where you'll find the checked value for O under the checked vowel entry, okay, for the O vowel, and that's O. Okay, and that's how you should work for all these words. Now, what about the free value? Well, the free value occurs in three main, well, you can predict that the vowel is going to be free, let's say, in three main types of contexts, okay? The first type of context is when the vowel is final, okay? That is, when it's not followed by a consonant, but in these contexts, it may still be followed by a mute E or an H, okay? A mute H, because an H at the end of a word is always mute, actually. That's what you have in the words so, die, dew, and ma, for instance. Okay, so in so, the vowel is final. In die, it's followed by a mute E, but it's final, okay? In B, and here I'm talking about the isolated, that is the pronunciation of the word in isolation, okay? Obviously in discourse, B will tend to be reduced because it's a functional grammatical word, okay? But in isolation, the E in B is pronounced as a long E, okay? In G, you have the U vowel followed by a final mute E. And in Ma, you have the A vowel, which is indeed realized as free, okay, but as foreign, all right? So here what you need to see is that the vowel is final, okay? So it's not going to be realized as A. It's not Ma, okay? It's Ma, right? It's realized as the foreign value, the foreign free value of A, okay? So to show you that the context for the free value covers all these contexts cover both the normal basic free value, the or modified free value as well, obviously, and the foreign free value, okay? So here to decide whether you have a normal basic value or foreign value, well, you need to know the origin of the word, or rather, in most cases, the value of the vowel is the basic value, that's why it's called basic, okay? But in a few words, if you feel like the value should be something else, it may be because it's a foreign word, okay? It's a word that was borrowed from another language. Another possible context for in which the free value is to be found is a context where the vowel is followed by a consonant, an optional liquid, so a liquid being either the L consonant or the R consonant, and a final mute E. Okay, so the liquid is optional. Okay, the basic pattern is the vowel followed by a consonant and a mute E. Okay, and in between the consonant and the mute E, you may have an R or an L, and it doesn't change the value of the vowel. That's what you need to remember. Okay, and this at the end of a word, right? So that's what you have in crime, theme, escape, home, cycle, ogre. Okay? So crime, theme, escape, home, cycle, crime, theme, escape, and home all have a vowel followed by a consonant followed by a mute E. Okay? In cycle and ogre, you have a vowel followed by a consonant followed by a liquid, so L in cycle, R in ogre, followed by a mute E, okay? And in all these cases, the vowel is free. If it was checked, you would have a different pronunciation. That is, it would be crim instead of crime, it would be them instead of theme, and so on. The reason why the vowel is free in these cases is precisely because of the context. That is, you have a vowel followed by a consonant followed by a mute E. Again, this should not come as a surprise if you remember what we saw when we discussed the history of English spelling. This is directly inherited from the system that was devised by the monks when they decided to add a silent E in some words to signal that the vowel that came before the consonant was long. Okay? Third type of context that usually entails a free vowel, okay, free value for the vowel, is when the vowel is followed by another vowel or possibly an H consonant followed by a vowel. That's what you have in diet, poem, vehicle, and trio. Okay, so in diet and poem and trio, you have a vowel followed directly by another vowel. Note, and this is important, that these sequences of vowels are not digraphs. Okay, so in diet, I and E does not form a digraph. Why? Because I is pronounced as a separate vowel from E. Same for O, pronounced as a separate vowel from E. You say diet, okay? I, two values for the two written vowels. So, which is why okay, sorry, which is why this is not considered a digraph, because remember, a digraph is a type of grapheme, and a grapheme is a sequence of letters that correspond just to one phoneme. In diet, you have two different phonemes for the two vowels. Same in poem, and same in trio. You have E and O. The reason why I said I use the example trio is to show you again that in this type of context, a foreign value is possible as well. It's not trio, which would be the expected basic free value for I. Okay, it's trio because the word has a foreign origin. In vehicle, you have an example where the two vowels are separated by an H, which is mute in this case, but it's not always mute. If you think of a word like cohort, okay, cohort, you have an O followed by an H, which is aspirated, so actually pronounced, and another O. Okay, so the H might be mute or not. Again, this last rule does not only work at the end of a word, okay, it may work in any position in a word, okay, which makes it an important rule as well. So these are the main contexts for the checked value on the one hand and the free value on the other hand. There is last type of context, which is a bit more problematic, okay, and for which we can only give tendencies. And that's the VCV context, possibly with an R in between. That is when the vowel is followed by a single consonant, followed by another vowel, okay, in the middle of a word. In these cases, there is no systematic rule that allows us to say that the vowel is going to be free or short, or checked. What we can say, however, is that if we have a look at the statistics, the value in such cases is more frequently free. Okay, so we can take as a basis the fact that, well, in this type of context, we can guess that the value is going to be free. Usually, when a vowel is checked, there's a doubling of the consonant. Okay, when there's no doubling of the consonant between two vowels, we may expect the vowel to be free. And that's what we have especially, and here there are actual rules, okay? That's where we have it, what we have especially when the stressed vowel, when the vowel that we're interested in is the vowel U, okay? So U is always free, normally, okay, when followed by a single consonant, possibly R as well. So this is something that's important for you to note. When you have a consonant, which is different from R, followed by R, okay, the sequence consonant plus R does not count as a consonant cluster, okay? Again, what you can see is that R is special, okay, it's special. So when you have U, okay, followed by a consonant, possibly followed by R, the vowel is tense, free. So you say mutiny, fury, okay, not mutiny, fury, okay? Mutiny, fury. The vowel is also free, okay, and that's a rule as well, okay, as opposed to what I said before about there being mere trends, okay, tendencies, statistics here. The vowel is also free when it occurs before a single consonant followed by a vowel, possibly mute E or H, at the end of a word. Okay, so when you have a VCV or VCRV context at the end of a word, you can expect the value of the vowel to be free, and that's what you have in photo and zero. Okay, so this is actually this may be related to the VCE context. Okay, where you have a vowel followed by a consonant and a mute E. The mute E may be considered to be a type of vowel. It's not pronounced, but it's a type of vowel. So it also works basically when the vowel is another vowel than E, okay, which is what you have in photo and zero, okay. So in photo 0, the vowel, the highlighted vowels are tense because you have a single consonant followed by a single vowel, and it's the end of the word. Okay, so these are the two rules that you have that tell you that the vowel should be free. Otherwise, it's just a matter of tendencies. There are, however, other rules, okay, which work in the same type of context. That is, when you have a vowel followed by a single consonant, possibly R, and a vowel, okay, where the vowel is checked and not free. There are three such contexts that you should be aware of. The first one is referred to by the rule that's called trisyllabic shortening. Okay? It says the following: when you have a stressed vowel that occurs in antepenultimate position or in an earlier syllable, the vowel is checked. Okay, and that's known as the trisyllabic shortening rule, or as the Lewick rule. Why Lewick rule? Because the person who came up with the rule was named Lewick. Okay, so that's what you have in words like sanity, typical, obscenity. So in all these words, the stressed vowel occurs in the antepenultimate syllable. Antepenultimate, remember, the third syllable from the end. Okay. When you have antepenultimate stress, okay, the vowel that is stressed is usually pronounced as checked, short, okay? And that's known as trisyllabic shortening. Why? Because most of the time these words, the words that are to which this rule applies to, rule applies to, sorry, the words that are concerned by this rule are actually derived words, okay, derivatives. And in the base form, very often, you actually have a free vowel, a long vowel. So if you think of sanity, for instance, sanity comes from sane, okay? And you can see that there's a difference in the pronunciation of the vowel between sanity and sane. Same for typical. Typical has a short vowel, okay? It comes from type, which has a long vowel. Same for obscenity, which has a short vowel, whereas it comes from obscene, which has a long vowel, okay? So what happens, in fact, is that when you add a suffix, such as ity or ik, or obscenity as well, in obscenity, there's a shortening of the vowel, which is due to the fact that you add syllables after the stressed vowel. And that in English, in order to maintain a regular rhythm, okay, where stresses occur at regular intervals in time, okay, the more syllables you have in a word, the shorter the syllables will tend to be, okay? And a way to make a syllable shorter than in other cases is to shorten the vowel, okay? So that's why in words like sanity, typical, obscenity, you have short vowels, whereas in the original base form, you have a long vowel, okay? So that's a context where, as you can see, you have a vowel followed by a single consonant, followed by another vowel, where the vowel is actually checked and not free, as is most often the case elsewhere, right? This rule actually also applies to words that are not directly derived from the words, words like vinegar, for instance, okay, or elephant, elegance, and so on, which you had in the exercise that I put on Cursus. Another rule that is that actually makes the vowel checked and not free, as you might expect it to be, as is usually the case when you have a vowel followed by one consonant only and another vowel, is when the consonant, okay, the single consonant that follows a vowel, is followed by an IC ending. IC meaning the vowel I followed by a consonant. The consonant is always an obstruent, meaning that it's either a plosive, a fricative, or an affricate. Sending you back to the consonant table here. What this means, to be more concrete, is that when the consonant is followed by an ending such as ik or ix, it, id, or ish, the preceding vowel is usually short. Okay, and that's what you have in critic and abolish in rapid, for instance. So in all these words, you have a vowel which is followed by a single consonant and an IC ending. So in the first word, critic, the IC ending is the ending ik. Okay. In the second word, the ending is ish. Okay. And in the last word, the ending is it. What all these words have in common is that they are stressed 10, meaning that they have primary stress on the penultimate syllable. Okay, and that's another condition for this rule to work. That is, when you have a vowel that is stressed and that occurs in the penultimate syllable, okay, and the consonant following the vowel is followed by an ending such as ik, it, id, or ish, the stressed vowel is pronounced as checked. Okay, so you say critic and not critic, you say abolish and not abolish, okay, and you say rapid and not rapid. Okay. Finally, there's another rule that also has to do with the presence of a stress-imposing affix, okay, and which comes into play when the consonant following the vowel is followed by an ian type of ending. Okay, so remember, an ian type of ending is an ending that starts with the vowel I, E, or U. Okay, and that is followed by another vowel and a consonant. Okay, and possibly a consonant, not necessarily. When the vowel that is stressed, which you're interested in, is followed by a consonant and an ian ending, there are two possible scenarios. If the stressed vowel is I or Y, okay, then it is always checked. Okay, that's the case in idiots. In idiots, you have the vowel I, okay, which is followed by a single consonant, and which is followed by an ian type of ending. Why? Because you have the vowel I, another vowel which is O, and a consonant, T. Okay. Again, the iot part may not be exactly a suffix, but it doesn't matter. It has the same form as an ian ending. So when the stressed vowel is I or Y and is followed by a single consonant and an ian ending, you have a checked vowel. Another case where you have a checked vowel and not a free vowel, as is most often the case, again, when you have a VCV type of context, is when the stressed vowel is A, E, or U, or O, sorry, not U, because as you can see, remember, have a look at the first rule on the slide, U is always free, okay, when it's followed by a consonant and a vowel, okay? So when the stressed vowel is either A, E, or O, and the ian ending starts with U, okay, as is the case in casual, in genuine, then the vowel is short as well, okay, checked as well. So in casual, in genuine, you can explain the fact that the vowel A is pronounced as A and not A. The vowel E is pronounced as E and not E, okay, by the fact that you have an ian ending, starting with U, okay, after the consonant, okay. So these are complex rules, okay, but which prove useful because they apply it to many words actually, okay. One last thing that has to be said for these two type of contexts. So when you have an ik or ish or id or it ending or an ian ending, okay, after the consonant, is that the rules apply as well when you have a neutral ending after these endings. That is, if you take rapid, it stays rapid when you add li, rapidly, okay? Critic, critical, okay? same for abolish, abolishment, or abolishing, and so on. Okay. This is actually logical because you're actually making the word longer. So when you had a stress pattern in 10, you get a stress pattern in 100. So it falls under the trisyllabic shortening rule as well. Okay. All right. Now, before we move on to a set of important subrules, one last thing you need to know as far as context for each values are concerned is when you should apply R modification. Okay. So R modification actually applies in most cases. That is, when the vowel is followed by R modification applies in most cases. When you have an R modified checked value, when in the context where you would have a checked value and one of the consonants that follow the vowel is actually R. Okay, so in bird, you have a checked R modified value because the I vowel occurs before a sequence of two consonants. Okay, so before a consonant cluster, and this is a context that entails a checked value. So you're going to have a look at the checked column, if you like, of your table, okay, for I. But then the first consonant is R. Okay, so this R is going to modify the checked value for I, and you'll get the value, okay? In fire, you can see that you're going to have a free R modified value. Why? Because again, you are in a context where you need to have a free value. You have a vowel that is followed by a single consonant followed by a mute E. This is a context for the free value. Okay. The free value is going to be modified by R because the consonant, okay, that comes after the vowel is R, and that's why you get I, okay, and not I simply. The same applies for hard and bear. Okay, hard follows the same rule as bird. That is, you have the vowel A followed by two consonants. So this is a context for the checked value to appear. And the first of these two consonants is R. So the checked value is going to be modified by R. In bear, you have the vowel A followed by a single consonant followed by mute E. So this is a context where you're going to have the free value, and the free value is going to be modified by R because the consonant is R. Okay? So again, R modification applies in most cases where the vowel is followed by R. Okay? When you have R after a vowel, usually the value of the vowel is modified by R in some way. There is one important exception to this rule. There are others, but they're not as important. Okay. The most important exception is when you have a checked vowel. Okay, so you have a checked vowel before a consonant cluster that is made of two R's. Okay, so when the consonant cluster is two R's, then you have and it's followed by another vowel. Okay, a vowel. You have no modification of the vowel. So in hurry, for instance, you have a checked vowel. Why? Because you have a vowel followed by a consonant cluster. The consonant cluster is made of two R's, but you have no modification of the previous consonant because that's precisely two R's. Okay, if you had an R and another consonant, then you would have modification of the value of the vowel by R, but not when you have when you have two R's. Okay, except when the word is actually derived from another word which ends with R. Okay, so if you compare hurry and furry, you'll see that you have two different sounds in words that look pretty similar. The difference is that hurry is not derived from any other word. Hurry is just hurry, it's not derived from her. In furry, however, the Y part is an ending. Furry comes from fur, okay? And in fur, the normal rule for R modification applies. That is, you have a vowel followed by a single consonant, so you have a checked vowel, okay? And the single consonant is R, so it modifies the value of the vowel. To keep the same type of pronunciation in the base and in the derivative, that is in the word in the derived form, you still have R modification in furry. Okay? And that's because in English there's a tendency that is known as isomorphism, which means that throughout derivation or compounding and so on, words, vowels and so on tend to keep the same pronunciation. That is a strong tendency that is contradicted by the trisyllabic shortening rule, okay? Where you actually have these two competing tendencies. The fact that you need to maintain a regular rhythm, okay? That stresses need to occur at regular intervals in time. And there are exceptions to the trisyllabic shortening rule that are due to this tendency to isomorphism. The fact that, well, in fur and furry, for instance, the pronunciation of the vowel is going to remain the same, so that the link between the two words is obvious. Okay. Right. So we've covered all the contexts for, well, the main context, okay, the context that you should remember, okay, for all the values that were represented in the table, okay, which presented the basic values for all the monographic vowels of SB in a stressed context. This is something that I haven't repeated that I didn't repeat for all the slides, but all the contexts that I've given before are valid when the vowel is stressed. When it's not stressed, again, it's not as predictable by rule, okay, and the rules aren't the same. There are, however, cases where, so if you've had a try at the exercise, okay, and if you haven't done it in full yet, well, I advise you to stop the video right here and to try and see how you can apply all the theoretical material that I've given you to the exercise, okay? Using the rules that I've given you, you should be able to cover the majority of words. But there will be words that will resist you. And this is because some of the words that were included in the exercise actually follow sub-rules, okay? Sub-rules are, again, rules that contradict or that modify the rules that I've given you before in specific contexts, okay? All the contexts that I've given you before are rather broad contexts, okay? There are more specific contexts where other rules that are called sub-rules apply. And this is what we will see now. So there are 4 sub-rules that I'm going to present now. There are actually more sub-rules than just these 4, but these are the most important ones. The first sub-rule is the pull sub-rule, okay? Sub-rule that is known as a pull sub-rule, and which says that the vowel U, whose basic checked value is A, remember, okay? Well, this U vowel is going to be realized as U, okay, as a short U, when it's preceded by F, P, B, and followed by double L, SH, or TCH, okay? That's what the rule that you have on the screen here means. So to decode the rule, okay, because this follows this convention actually for expressing graphophonemic rule. The use of angle brackets angle brackets are used to say this is what's in between the angle brackets is a grapheme, a graphic unit. Okay, so the U vowel gives or is realized as, okay, that's what the arrow means, the sound or the phone, U. Okay, then you have a slash. The slash means in the following context. Okay, so the vowel, the graphic vowel U is realized as the phone U in the following context. Then you have F/P/B, which means the letter or the graph F or P or B. Then you have a hyphen, okay, long hyphen or dash, okay. The dash is where the vowel would occur. That is, when you have U instead of the dash, that is preceded by F, P, or B, and followed by double L or SH or TCH, okay, then the vowel is realized as U. Examples of words to which this rule applies are pull, full, push, butcher, bully. Okay, so as I said before, these are words where U has kept its original historical pronunciation, and there are very few such words in English nowadays. So there are about 20 words of that type. Okay. Obviously, when you when you use neutral endings, okay, with these words, the pronunciation stays the same. So you have pull, pulling, pulled, and so on. Okay, bully, bullies, and so on. Full, fuller, fullest, etc. Push, pushes, right. So this is why you may might seem to you that there are quite a large number of these. There's quite a high number of words like this, but there are not really. And what you need to remember as well is that they all have the same form. That is, the preceding consonant is either F, P, or B, and the vowel is always followed either by double L, SH, or TCH. Okay. Right. So that's the pull subrule. Okay, which deviates from the main rules because basically, although the vowel is still checked, if you like, because you still have a short vowel, okay, it's not the expected short vowel. It's not a, it's u, a different vowel. Then you have another rule, which is called the ALC or O and OLC subrules. Okay, there's actually a set of subrules here. This subrule applies to words that end in ALC or OLC. That is, this rule applies when the ALC, so it's a capital C, so it means that instead of the C, it's going to be a consonant, okay? This rule applies when you have the AL or OL plus consonant part in a final syllable or before neutral ending. Okay? In this type of context, A is going to be pronounced as O when it's followed by L plus L, T, D, S, or K. And that's why you have words like all, salt, bold, and talk are pronounced as they are pronounced. If you have a look at the table with the basic values of the vowel A, you'll see that there's no mention of this O value for A. That's because it's not a regular expected value for A. It corresponds to a specific subrule, okay, where A occurs before the L consonant, followed by another consonant, which might be either L, T, D, S, or K. Okay. Here again, the L, T, D, S, K refer to graphic consonants, okay, not to phonemes. For instance, in talk, okay, you can hear that the L is actually not pronounced, right? There's another type of ALC context for the A vowel. When the vowel actually occurs before L plus M or F, it has a different value, which is R, which actually corresponds to its checked or modified value. Okay, that's what you have in calm and in half. Right? So compare all, salt, bold, and talk, and calm, half. There's a difference in the pronunciation of the vowel in these two cases because the consonant following the first L is not the same. Okay? So again, this is not an expected pronunciation of the vowel, okay? Except that you can see perhaps that the L has a similar influence on the vowel as the R. And this makes sense given that the two consonants are belong to the same family, that is, they're both liquid consonants, okay, which are a subtype of approximants. So again, these deviations from the normal expected pronunciation are actually explained from an articulatory point of view. Okay, there's a reason why these vowels in these contexts are pronounced as they are. Finally, O is affected as well in some contexts. That is, it's pronounced with its free value, okay, when it's followed by an L, followed by L, T, D, S, K, M. Okay. Only F has no impact where it has an impact with A. Okay. So that's what you have in roll, in cold, in folk. This is unexpected because in all these cases, the vowel is followed by a consonant cluster. So you should have its normal basic checked value. For A, you have a value that, you have two values that do not correspond either to its checked value or to its free value. But for O, you can see that what you have actually corresponds to its free value. Okay. So again, important rule to remember because it actually applies to lots of words. Okay. And you had words that were influenced by this type of ending in the series of words I gave you in the exercise. Third subrule, known as the W subrules. Okay. These rules are subrules apply to, again, so concern the A vowel and the O vowel when they occur after a W sound. So it corresponds in spelling to a wa or qua spelling in a checked consonant that is followed by a consonant cluster and so on. In these contexts, when you should have a checked value with wa or qua, okay, the value should normally be a. Okay, remember the checked value for the A vowel is a. When the a, which should be the underlying pronunciation, if you like, of the vowel in such contexts, when the vowel is preceded by a w sound, it's rounded. Okay, the w is a bilabial consonant. It's pronounced with both lips coming together. And this round feature of the W sound influences the pronunciation of the A vowel, which is rounded into O. Okay, A, O. And that's why words like what, swamp, squash, wonder have special pronunciations. Okay, you do not say what, swamp, squash, wonder in English. Okay, in Southern British English, you say what, swamp, squash, and wonder, because the W, okay, the W in writing, sometimes you can see that it's actually QU, so that's why there are different possibilities in spelling, but these two spellings are actually realized as W. The W sound influences the pronunciation of the vowel, which is rounded. When the vowel should be, when the vowel A occurs in a checked context where there should be R modification and is preceded by a W sound, you have another type of modification because the underlying value should not be A but R. Okay, remember? Hard, right? You have the R sound. When this R sound is preceded by a W sound, again there is rounding. But since the starting position is not the same as when you don't have R modification, the resulting value is different as well. So R becomes O, and you get war, swarm, reward, warrior, wall, and so on. Okay? Right. So these are the two W subrules that apply to the A vowel. Okay? Written vowel. there's another, there's an exception actually to this rule, that is the influence of the w sound is blocked if the vowel is followed by a velar consonant, that is either k, g, or n. The reason for that, this may be explained again. So that's what you have in wax and quacks. Okay, you say wax, quack, and not walks, quack, right? The reason for that is that k and g and n are sounds that are pronounced at the back of the mouth, whereas rounded vowels are pronounced at the front. So there would be some kind of contradiction between pronouncing the vowel as rounded under the influence of w and going back towards the back of the mouth to pronounce the velar sound. So in these cases, the w has no influence because your articulation basically moved from the front of the mouth to the middle, okay, to the back of the mouth. Okay, so no influence of the w sound when the vowel is followed by k, g, or n. Then there's another rule, w sub-rule, that applies to words that have the o vowel, and when this o vowel is followed by r and another consonant. In these cases, the o vowel is realized as okay, instead of o, which might seem a bit contradictory because, well, the vowel is less rounded than the o vowel. Okay, so this is not as easy to understand as the previous rules, but it's quite intuitive because you usually know that you say word, worth, and worm, okay, and not warm, worth, and ward. Okay, so word, worth, and worm. A possible explanation may be that if you were to pronounce these words with the o sound, they would actually sound the same as words that are spelled with an a. Okay, so that might be part of the explanation. That's for the w sub-rules. One final set of sub-rules, well, it's one sub-rule really, which again concerns words which have the a vowel. So you can see that actually most of the sub-rules that we've discussed concern words which have the a vowel. The first one concerned the words that had the u vowel, okay? All of the words had to do either with the a vowel or the o vowel. The ask sub-rule is or the ask word sub-rule is a rule that only applies to that is typical of the Southern British English variety, okay? What we've said about the other sub-rules that we've discussed actually also work in General American, for instance. That's not the case of the ask sub-rule, and that is one of this of the things that make General American and Southern British English sound so different. So the ask sub-rule is a sub-rule that applies to in final syllables or before neutral endings. That is when the a vowel occurs in final syllables or before neutral endings. It says that when you should have an a checked vowel, this a checked vowel is actually realized as a, okay, before double S, SP, ST, SK, SQE, F, possibly double F, FT, TH, NCE, NCH, possibly followed by E. So that's lots of endings to remember. There's a way to systematize that, okay? And this is in final position, hence the hash sign. So this rule basically applies to words like fast, glass, staff, ask, dance, branch, bath, which are pronounced like this in Southern British English, as opposed to General American, where you would have fast, glass, staff, ask, dance, and so on, okay? Where you have this difference between the two. So in Southern British English, you would expect normally, if you didn't have this sub-rule, you would expect an a vowel, okay? Because in all these words, except the last one, because we've seen that th does not actually count as a consonant cluster. Otherwise, you would expect an a vowel because the vowel is followed by a consonant cluster. You actually get an a vowel because of the special type of ending that these words have. And this was actually a characteristic that was that developed in the southern part of England, and that came to be a characteristic of RP accent at the time when RP emerged as a way of sounding educated and posh and so on. Okay. So a way to make this rule perhaps easier to understand for some of you at least is to say that the A vowel is actually realized as A before voiceless fricatives. Okay, so f, s, f, except sh in final position or followed by plosive. Okay, so if you have a look at all of the written contexts that you have before, they may be explained in phonetic terms, saying that when a, or when the A vowel is followed by a voiceless fricative, either f, s, or f, so except sh does not work, okay? In final position or followed by plosive, the vowel is actually realized as a. That's one part of the context, and the other part is that it's also realized as a when it's found before n followed by s or ch or sh, okay, which is what you have in dance and branch, etc. Right. Again, this rule only applies to cases where the ask type of ending occurs at the end of the word, okay, or that is in the final syllable or before neutral ending. You'll find that it actually also seems to work in longer words like castle, answer, father, after, where you have the same type of pronunciation in British English. But in fact, it can't be generalized. Okay, there's no regular rule for these longer words. Okay, so remember that although you may find the same type of modification in longer words, okay, this rule mainly applies to syllable final or word final or before neutral endings. Okay, right. So we have finished the chapter 2 on the graphophonemics of English, and more specifically the correspondences between written English vowels and spoken English vowels. So at this point you should be able, once you've processed all this, which is, I'll agree with you, a lot to process, okay, you should be able to predict the pronunciation of vowels that you see in writing. So to predict the vowel, the pronunciation of a vowel in a word that you don't know, and to explain the pronunciation in the vowels in the words that you do know. Okay, and that's what you'll be asked to do in the exam. Okay, for this chapter. So in the exam, what you will have is basically a condensed version of the exercise on graphophonemics that I put on Cursus. Okay. So this is quite a complex chapter that requires lots of rule learning, okay, which is not always very fun. It becomes more interesting if you understand why certain rules work the way they do, and if you understand the origin of these rules as well. So I advise you to keep all this in mind, and if you have specific questions, please ask them on the forum. I'll be there to answer them.